With that said, Iran can have a much brighter future, but will never allow America and its allies to be threatened with terrorism or nuclear attack. The choice is theirs to make. We really want them to be a successful country. We want them to be a wonderful, safe, great country, but they cannot have a nuclear weapon. This is an offer that will not last forever. The time is right now for them to choose. Right now, we don't have a lot of time to wait.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt in Studio North. Noah C. Rothman, senior writer at National Review. Noah, again and again, Donald Trump says Iran has two choices. He told me last week they can dismantle it nicely or we can dismantle it viciously. I don't think there's any ambiguity here. Do you think it's clear that either they dismantle or we blow them up?
I think that's the binary the president is retailing. Iran, from what we're hearing, seems to be toying with notions that sort of comport with the president's framework, but I don't think are sufficient. And I'm hoping that the White House doesn't think they're sufficient, like the notion that it would engage in some sort of a joint enrichment program with regional partners, including Saudi Arabia, which seems to me to be unworkable. But it's also just a desire to give the president something that he can point to and say deal, and avoid what should be the outcome of this process, which is the total verifiable dismantling of all of its enrichment programs. Oh, and by the way, the ballistic missile program as well. That's what I think the president's goal should be, a maximalist objective. We'll see what we get to. But I think the president is right to say my way or the highway.
That is his repeated statement. Against the backdrop of that statement again in Riyadh today, Israel announced a massive 9-wave assault on the European hospital, which was believed to have a bunker in which Mohammed Sinwar was hiding. If, in fact, it's confirmed that he's dead, that means they may be out of leadership. There'll be someone lying around who will pick up the mantle. They might start shooting at each other pretty soon. Do you think there might be an end in sight there?
I don't know. I think the war in Gaza is about to heat up in ways that will really stress and strain the relationship that the Netanyahu administration has been, or government has been building with this administration. But that's hardly the most important thing that I think came out of the president's visit to Riyadh today. If I had to posit a real earth-shattering revelation that the president revealed today, it would be his decision to withdraw sanctions on the Syrian government, the post-Assad Syrian government. This is something I've been following pretty closely. There has been a real ideological conflict within the administration over how to approach the post-Assad regime in Syria. It has been one that has pitted one side of this conflict, roughly represented by Tulsi Gabbard and Seb Gorka, against the other side, which favors engagement, which by and large you could say is more or less the Marco Rubio position. And it seems the Rubio position is winning out. And I think there's reason for optimism when it comes to the Syrian regime. They have been walking the walk when they've also, they've been soliciting foreign direct investment from Europe and from North America. And they've been doing things that reflect a desire to have a more liberal social covenant and certainly to be a steward of American interests. Before this, Representative Corey Mills was on the ground in Syria. And before his visit, the administration said, listen, we want you to take some steps to roll up some of these Iran-led organizations like Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And they did it. The Syrian regime did it. And I think they deserve to be rewarded for those displays of faith. We have traded an Iran-led Syrian regime for a Turkish proxy in Damascus. That presents its own set of problems, but it's desirable to truncate the Iranian axis of fire around Israel. Iran lost a partner in Damascus, and I think it's a good thing for the United States to attempt to shore up an emerging Western-led regime in that country. We should be very cautious about what it is and what its desires are for the region. But it's certainly an improvement over having an Iranian vassal in Damascus. And I think the Trump administration leaning into that and not assuming that it is a terrorist proxy and thus creating a self-fulfilling prophecy for itself, I think that's a very good thing. It's a hopeful sign.
Here's what the president said about that today in Riyadh, cut number 19.
Likewise, in Syria, which has seen so much misery and death, there is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. They've had their share of travesty, war, killing, many years. That's why my administration has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade. And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week. And very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East, I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Now, no, I have not followed this other than through Israeli media and their intent on protecting the Druze and making sure that the government in Damascus does not advance towards Israel. Give me some of the details of Tulsi Seb versus Rubio. I haven't followed that at all.
Well, listen, the Tulsi Gabbard Seb Gorka side is not without evidence to support its proposition, which is essentially that we can't trust this government. It is too closely aligned with Islamist terrorists, specifically Al-Qaeda, because Al-Jilani, who goes by the name now Al-Shahra, it was aligned with Al-Nusra. Al-Nusra was an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. And if you were to draw a straight line from that ideological ascension, you would say, okay, well, this is an Al-Qaeda government. But Al-Jilani has been undergoing a reputational renovation, not even predating the collapse of the Assad regime. And he has made outreach to Syrian Christians. He appeared very prominently in the cathedral in Aleppo. There's sectarian violence in Syria. This is still many parts of Syria are still lawless and ungoverned. And there's evidence that this regime is attempting to roll up some of its, Assad era grievances with the last regime. But it is vastly preferable from an American perspective, to say nothing of the Israeli perspective, to have a Syria that is aligned with the Sunni kingdoms in the region, the UAE and Saudi Arabia primarily, and not with Iran and the Axis of Fire, which it was previously. Syria under Bashar al-Assad slaughtered its own citizens, eviscerated the prohibition on the use of chemical weapons on the battlefield. It sponsored terrorist campaigns inside Iraq when the United States was inside Iraq. It's directly and indirectly responsible for the killing of Americans. The United States had to exercise cross-border raids into Assad's Syria. And when this regime was beginning to collapse, the Assad regime incubated ISIS by purchasing its own oil from this terrorist network, which eventually became the Islamic State, the Islamic Caliphate that we had to collapse. Syria was an endless headache for us, and it is no longer. And we should cement that relationship. And a good faith gesture like removing sanctions, which can be restored, is something that I think is a valuable enterprise, just to take that chess piece off the Iranian board and add it to our own.
Well said, Noah Rothman. Great contribution today. Thank you. Follow him on X at Noah C. Rothman. Listen to him frequently on The Editors, the podcast of National Review, which comes out twice a week. And come right back after the break. This is the Hugh Hewitt Show.